Let's look at downloading our HTML and CSS from Codepen onto our local machines and set up a local environment for us to work on our HTML and CSS files. So I'm in Codepen here online, and I've got a project here that I want to download and prepare for deployment, and that is to upload it to my server and to kind of get it out there live on the internet. So I'm going to need to extract from Codepen my HTML and CSS into separate HTML and CSS files. So that is files with the text files with the extension .html and the extension .css. So we've written our HTML here and our CSS in our code panels in Codepen. And Codepen can export that out to files that we can use locally. So we'll need to go down to the bottom right hand corner, and it's a very easy process. We'll go down to the bottom right hand corner here, and there's a little button called Export. So we'll click on the Export button, and we'll go to Export a zip file. And then we'll download a zip file. So you can see that on my machine I've set up Chrome to download directly to my desktop. So you can see here I've got a zip file that's got the same title here as a previous project that we've worked on. Alright, I'm going to unzip that and we'll have a look at the contents. So we've got a folder here of files, it seems. Inside we've got two folders. One folder is titled dist and one is called src, so I suppose source files and distribution files. The source files, if we twirl that down, we can see that we have an individual index.html and we've got a style.css. And this is the code or the markup exactly as it's written in Codepen. So I've got one HTML file with everything from my HTML panel, and I've got one CSS file with everything from my CSS panel. And if I was writing in JavaScript, I'd also have a JavaScript file. So that's the source files there. We've also got the distribution files, which are a replication of that markup, but they're written with the whole HTML structure included. So Codepen includes our HTML tags and our header tags and the metadata that we don't need to include when we're writing our HTML in the HTML panels there. So that's really quite handy. And we'll have a look at that code when we open it up in an editor. We're going to need an editor to edit this HTML and CSS. We could do it in nothing more than like TextEdit or Notepad. So I've got, I think I've got TextEdit somewhere here. TextEdit, we could use TextEdit. I could open up, may as well open up that file into TextEdit. And I've got TextEdit to preview rich text. So I'll make sure I'll turn that off, but I could edit this text here, save it, and any changes that I made would be updated. A better kind of environment to edit your HTML and CSS is a code editor, and there's plenty of them about, and I use and encourage you guys to use a text editor called Brackets. And I'm just going to go to the Brackets website. That'll find it for us. It's brackets.io. It's a very small download. It's very quick to install, so do it now. Brackets is a kind of very streamlined, fluid, easy to use code editor. for editing our HTML and CSS. It's, I think it is a project initiated by Adobe, but it's an open source project and it's not part of the Adobe Creative Cloud. So download that, install that on your machine. I've already done that, and if I go to my applications, you'll see that I've got the brackets.app icon there, and I'm going to open that up. Right, so you can see just very briefly that on the right hand side here I've got a file browser. So I've got this kind of file structure here, and I've currently got it set to looking at my desktop. So I've just downloaded a file, and on my desktop we've got this folder that I've opened, that I've unzipped, and then this zip file. And I can actually navigate inside there and look at the individual files. So we know that inside that folder is a distribution folder, a couple of other files, and then the source folder there. I can very easily just open up that folder there and in brackets click on that index file and see all of my code that has been compiled by Codepen. So as I mentioned before, in the source folder here, the index file is the code exactly as it's written in the HTML panel in Codepen, and the distribution version of the index.html includes a doc type, the HTML tag, head tags, and a body tag as well. And then there's a nice little comment here to tell me where the code that I've written starts and where it ends down here. So one of the advantages of using a code editor like Brackets as opposed to just a text editor is that I have like this ability to navigate through my file and folder structures, directory structures, but also things that we've become used to in Codepen, like text hinting, code hinting, and all of those kind of helpful features are built into code editors as well. So for example, if I select my head tag, my opening head tag, it will highlight my closing head tag, so I can troubleshoot in that way. As I'm typing tags as well, it will show me, it will give me options for potential tags in the HTML, and it will also help me write style rules in the CSS. So if I click over into the style, you can see all my styles here that I've written in Codepen. And if I wanted to update any of the CSS, I just write it inside this file, and it will save it inside that .css file, which is pretty good. I can also, and I might just move, I'm working on a very small screen here, I can also preview this HTML and CSS. If I just go to split screen, I'll be able to add my style to the bottom and my HTML, HTML to the top. And so this kind of replicates that code writing environment that we were using in Codepen, HTML at the top and my CSS down the bottom. If you've got a bigger screen, obviously this is that's helpful, but I can also preview that in an actual browser. So if I go over to this little live preview button here, I can click on that, and it should, fingers crossed, open up Codepen and show me a preview of what I've written, which is pretty good. And if I might just try and squeeze both of these things on the page at the one time. If I make any adjustments, for instance, I wanted to make some adjustments to the typography here, I can just write that in. You can see that something is happening here on the preview. It's kind of highlighted all of those paragraph elements that I'm potentially going to change. If I go into the H2, it's highlighted the H2s, and maybe I'll change the H2s just for something to do here. So I'm going to increase the size of the headings like so. You can see that that's been updated, which is kind of cool. Maybe we'll add in a color of something very obvious but horrible. And it's updated it on the fly. So this is kind of live preview functionality or connection between Chrome and brackets that's really helpful as you're working. So there you go. Working in Codepen is extremely helpful to get a project going. It's great for experimenting, writing kind of code snippets, saving your code to your directory, and also sharing. But at some stage you're going to want to build a more fully complete website that's intended to go onto a server, a public server, to be displayed on the internet. In that case, you're going to want to download your HTML and CSS files or your website files, work on them locally on your machine in a code editor like Brackets, and then later on you're going to deploy them to a server.